Hello, and welcome to The Outside Story, a podcast on film, TV, and media from an outside perspective. Was that scary? That doesn't sound scary. Anyway, so welcome to The Outside Story, a podcast on film, TV, and media from an outside perspective. My name is Jonathan. I am joined today with my brother and co-host, Larry. You're listening to our first episode of our 2020 October Halloween special. So these episodes are going to sound a lot like what last year's Halloween special sounded like. They're going to be kind of short, more conversational. We're just going to be watching horror films and talking about them, basically. So Larry, you want to talk a little bit about like what the Halloween special is and why we do it?
Yeah, so Jonathan and I, we're not like, we didn't grow up loving horror films, but we did grow up kind of watching them because our cousin was really into them, and like, to be honest, like that was all Asian films were kind of known for when we were growing up. Like their horror films are so good, they're so scary.
That and kung fu, I feel.
Yeah, that and martial arts. Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
And so like what we were thinking about, like The Ring, The Grudge, all those kind of classic horror films, Asian horror films, Shudder, etc., which we covered last year. So if you're interested, check it out. Or if you need a refresher, definitely check it out. So Jonathan and I, we just really like horror because there are certain things that horror can only tell. Like you can only use horror as a medium to tell their stories. And I think one of the big things that really kickstarted it, though, like to make us really love horror, was probably The Haunting of Hill House, which I want to say that's the big thing, to be honest, Jonathan. Like, would you say that's correct, Jonathan? Like that's big thing that kind of reignited our horror interest.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like Haunting of Hill House was just like it's such a good, such a good TV show. And we'll continue to toot its horn forever because of how great it is. And I would say that, but then I feel like also leading up to it, we also watched a handful of really good horror films like The Babadook and
right.
like other stuff that kind of just like led up to it, and so it's almost as if like horror has kind of had this sort of like reawakening, of the ways in which it tells its stories. And so I just feel like that kind of just like piqued our interest,
Right.
in horror. And then another reason why we do this also is because our sister is like not really a horror fan, and she's the other co-host of this podcast, and we don't want to put her through something that she just can't handle.
Right.
And so we were just kind of, okay, we'll do this, and you don't have to be a part of it. You're more than welcome to be a part of it. We want you to be a part of it, but we also don't want to subject you to like things that are not things where you're not going to be able to sleep if you watch them.
And trust me, I've had those nights a couple times. I'd wake up in the middle of the night just like shivering. I'm like, wait, why am I why do I feel like so terrified? But like, no, I'm fine, I'm totally fine, but I just feel really scared right now. But I've definitely had those moments after watching these films. So
yeah, totally. And we wanted to do it again because also like a lot of my friends said that this is like their favorite this is their favorite special,
right.
Of all the episodes we do, these are the ones that they look forward to. And so like I think it's fun. It kind of generates a lot of conversation with friends and stuff like that too. And I love horror. Do you want to give a little? I don't know if you want to, but do you want to give a little kind of trajectory of this special, how it differs from last year?
Yeah, sure. So last year we were pretty ambitious and we watched something and we made an episode pretty much like every weekday. Every day for you guys to consume. And it was fun, but it was a lot of work. And we covered we legit covered a lot of horror films. And so when we were thinking of our next list, we're like, man, like I don't think we can come up with enough films to cover every day again, too. So, like, I
think we can. It's just a lot of work.
Yeah, we probably can. If we really wanted to, we probably could.
Right.
But essentially, that would mean we're watching like a film every single night, every single day, trying to prep and get ready. And that's a lot of work. So this time instead, we're just releasing one episode a week, and we're covering a handful of films. So it won't just be like one or two films in particular, but at least three for sure. So that's kind of what we'll be doing for this month. So a total of 4 episodes for this year's Halloween special.
So for today's episode, our 3 films are The Grudge, released in January of this year, 2020, written directed by Nicholas Peishi. Ju-on Origins, released summer of 2020 on Netflix. It's a TV series, like a short TV series, written by Hiroshi Takahashi and Takashige Ichise, and directed by Sho Miyake. And then our final film that we'll be talking about today is called The Wailing, released in 2016, written and directed by Na Hongjin. Why don't we just get started? The Grudge, if you are a horror fam, I guess fam works.
Yeah,
horror
fam works. Mm-hmm.
If you're part of the horror fam, you know what The Grudge is. It's a film that was released a while back, Japanese horror film, and has gotten so many sequels and remakes and all these things. It's very, very popular. What's the word I'm looking for?
Franchise?
Yeah, franchise.
Or popular, yeah, iconic, or memorable.
Yeah, or like canon, to pull from.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so when we heard that it was getting a 2020 remake, we were like, oh, cool. That might be great, because the American remake that came out shortly after, or around the time when The Grudge was really popular, was kind of a piece of crap. It starred Sarah Michelle Gellar, I think.
Yes, that is correct.
And just did not leave. That's actually the first horror film that I saw in movie theaters.
Oh wow. Okay.
Because before then I was kind of a chicken.
It wasn't Paranormal Activity?
No, Paranormal came out after that.
I think it did too. Yeah, I think it did too. Yeah. But okay.
Yeah, and then I swore to myself that I would never watch another horror film in theaters after watching Paranormal Activity. But
we broke that rule, didn't we?
We broke that rule.
I broke it several times.
I'm definitely older now, and so I've grown a sort of, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for here. I'm just blanking out on words.
Resilience,
or like numbness,
mm-hmm.
To like horror stuff,
Yeah.
Like a lot of people would jump at stuff, and I'm just like,
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So The Grudge, 2020. Yeah. What did you think, Larry, of this film?
I remember we talked about this earlier this year, and
we did.
Yeah, you mentioned to watch it in theaters. You mentioned it was bad, but I was like, I don't know if I want to watch it in theaters because I know it's going to be bad and a waste of my time. And this film was pretty bad, like on all levels. Like, okay, the number one thing, I was trying to remember how this film went, and I was like, isn't this film really dark? Like light. Like you can't see anything. Like I can't think of any iconic imagery, iconic shots, like nothing. Everything is dark and claustrophobic and enclosed, and it's like I don't really recall anything that well. And I understand, like maybe that's what that director was trying to do, but I was like, no, like I don't remember anything about the film. Especially, it's like the reason why I bring this up is because in Ju-on The Grudge, like the original Japanese one, like the house is so iconic. The house is really iconic, super iconic, and you know how it's laid out already because you've seen it so many times. But here, in the house in this Grudge in the 2020 version, I'm like, I don't. Yeah, it doesn't. Looks like a basic house. You can't tell
if you're in that house or if you're in a different house or if, like,
exactly. Yeah. So like they don't. I don't know. I just feel like they don't take advantage of that. And that's like one of the big things. What makes The Grudge so iconic is actually making those locations memorable. Just to kind of like sidetrack just a little bit, there's a Wii game based on The Grudge, and there's like 5 levels, but there's a hidden 6th level, and in the 6th level you can explore the house. And if you're like fans of the franchise, then you know like that house is really super creepy, and like it's detailed exactly how you would see it in the film. So that's how important like that location is, and this is like a totally missed opportunity that they did for this year's version of The Grudge, because it's like I said, so dark, can't see anything, don't know what's going on.
Speaking of like like houses and stuff like that, like The Haunting of Hill House is another great example of like an iconic home. Like the layout of that house, like where, like if you were to walk in, where the stairs are, where the parlor is, where the red room is, like all these things, like like because you're just so used to it, in The Grudge, like the house is so much a part of the film, and I felt like I wasn't getting that watching this remake. And yeah, I feel like, Mike Flanagan should do the third season, like season 3 of The Haunting, on The Grudge, like the haunting of, like, I don't know what the house is called, but like they could totally do like the haunting of that particular house.
Yeah, I think
that would be so good.
I think that would be really interesting.
He could totally nail it. So good.
He could totally nail it.
Oh my god. Yeah, but this movie is just a bunch of short stories, not short stories, like a bunch of arcs, kind of like
short character arcs.
Characters. Yeah, kind of like weaving into each other's stories and stuff like that, and eventually everybody dies.
Like how most horror films.
Yeah, the characters are like, let's talk about some of our characters here. Like John Cho is in it. He plays this real estate agent for the house, and his story is very tragic. His wife is pregnant, and during the pregnancy, they find out that their child is going to be born with a disease, and so they have a really, really difficult time kind of like coming to terms with what that might mean for them, the decisions that they have to make and stuff like that. And at the same time, John Cho's character is trying to wrap up everything that is going on with the house, and trying to wrap up the sale of it and stuff like that. And during that time, him trying to wrap up the house sale and stuff, the murder happens in that house that encapsulates, I guess, the spirit of the Grudge in that house, and eventually he gets possessed by the spirit and kills his wife, and the baby.
Right, but that's just one.
That is not yet born.
That is just one arc, though.
That's just one. Rest in peace, also, to the woman who, she was the worker. She was the compassionate presence that was hired by one of the husbands that worked there to kind of like see that I was just like, man, she's a really good character, and the actress who played her was really good. Like, really, she's very unique. Like, when you hear her voice and when you see her character, you're like, wow, this is a standout character. And then she just died. It's just
but that stays true, at least to the tradition of how the Grudge films work. Right. The original Ju-on Grudge, they're all just a bunch of short stories that talk about all the residents that live in that particular house and how they're like haunted by that grudge. So I guess like this film tries to do the same thing but in a different way, just to kind of show that people who are involved with the house, it doesn't just affect people who live in the house, but people who are involved with the house as well. So I kind of respect that a little bit, how they try to localize it and try to make it like more American, I guess. But more then
appropriate, quote unquote appropriate.
Yeah, but then like by making it American, that means like your little scary child is a girl instead of a boy, because scary girls are more renowned in Western horror films, you know what I mean, than like scary
thanks
boys.
To The Shining.
Yeah, thanks Shining. There's also like a bunch of like time jumps and time skips, and it's kind of all over the place. Which is very similar, like I said, very similar to the original, but then at the same time, like this one tries to connect them, but it's very incoherent, and it makes it really confusing as to like what's kind of going on. You won't really know and understand anything until the very end, when everything kind of wraps up. You're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So yeah, I just didn't like the way they did that, because it was just like the whole ride. Watching the film was just like a flat line. Like I didn't feel any like ups or downs. It was just sort of like very flat. And then the very end, I'm like, oh, and then like it's still flat. Like I had no emotional roller coasters.
That's funny, because at the end for me, I was like, hey,
Yeah.
That was my. You were like, oh, I was like, huh. Yeah, and the weird thing also with this is like, even though there's a bunch of stories and a bunch of characters, there's a main character, right, for the Grudge,
the police lady, right? Would you say so?
The police woman, and I did not feel like she was a main character. Like I just wasn't really like she has this like deep kind of sort of grief that she's carrying, right, like into this story.
Yes.
Does that grief get revisited? Not once.
I agree. Like, yes, I agree, because like that grief was a huge missed opportunity, because it's very clear. Totally. Like if they made her the main character, which I think they were trying to make her the main character, they needed to explore that grief. Right. We see, to be honest, we see more grief with the police lady's detective partner than
Right.
with
Oh yeah,
yeah, we
Uh-huh.
see more grief with his partner than the actual police
Yeah.
lady herself. And like I said, huge missed opportunity, because it's sort of like we know that she's somehow connected, or she feels drawn to the house for no,
Right.
for no real reason, but then
Yeah, no reason at all. Yeah.
yeah, but then we know she's drawn to it, and there's a reason why she's drawn to it, because there's something inside that she's trying to figure out, and we don't ever see that. And
Yeah.
that's a huge missed opportunity, because it's like what
Yeah.
horror films tend to do is you tend to like confront things you've been kind of running away from, or confront things that you've never really dealt with like for a long, long time, that's just kind of been
Yeah.
sitting there. And that's what good horror films do. Like they'll go and confront that, and I think this house was supposed to be that. But
Yeah.
here, like, she just kind of does it, but nothing happens, and like the
Right.
biggest thing, the biggest clue to it, and I know, Jonathan, you've always griped about this part of the film, was when the police lady enters the house and tries to like burn down the house.
Yeah, the climax.
Yeah, and then you hear the grudge lady saying, "I want to show you something," right?
Yeah,
And so,
yeah.
okay, legit, there's no reason to show her anything, because you're gonna kill her anyway. One, and two,
Yeah.
it's like the reason why you would show it is the reason why ghosts tell anything, in most stories, is that one, they're trying to find some way to like appease their spirit, give them some hint to how to appease it, or two, it's
Right.
sort of like they're trying to remind you of something, or trying to bait you in to do something. And that's what none of that did. Instead, like, I just want to show you something because I need to show the audience what happened in this house. But it's like it's not personal to the character. It's not personal to any of them. So it's just sort of like, I don't care. I don't care what
Yeah.
happens to the people in the house, because I think I already kind of get the idea that something bad went down. And I was okay with that.
Right. Right.
But yeah, she needed some kind of connection to be able to see what was going on in that house,
Right.
but she didn't
Right.
have one. So yeah.
Yeah. And then there's this kind of like weird, she's a single mother. The grief that she's carrying is from her recently passed away husband. And she has this relationship with her child, right? That is like sometimes literally non existent throughout the whole movie. Like he shows up only like once in a while for particular plot reasons, and that's it. Like they need to redevelop this, because at the end of the film what ends up happening is that the ghost girl from the Grudge house pretends to be her son, and there could be so much meaning in that, right? In
Yeah.
her, like in her relationship with her son and things like that. But no, like they didn't explore any of that, and that was really unfortunate. But yeah. Oh, we spent a lot of time on this.
I know.
Maybe we should move forward.
Yeah, let's move on, because this is not a good
I
film.
recommend. We do not recommend this film. We do also, real quick though, I want to talk about the music. The music is freaking phenomenal.
Oh
in
yes,
this film.
yes, music is so good.
Yeah, like shout out to the Newton brothers, who also did the music for Haunting of Hill House. I also felt like this movie was trying to bite off a lot of stuff with Hill House. There were some things that were just seemingly like blatantly copied from Hill House, and I'm just like, yeah, that's just
Yeah, like
They just
they
wait.
copied it without understanding why they should have copied it.
right.
Yeah, they
right.
just yeah.
And that's unfortunate. Okay, moving on to the better Ju-on that came out this year.
Yes.
Yeah, why don't you talk about that one, Larry?
Sure. So Ju-on Origins came out on Netflix this past summer, and Jonathan and I didn't even know it was coming out. So it was like a huge surprise to me. And we didn't know about it until Jessica mentioned it, and then we're like, "Jess, are you gonna watch it?" She's like, "No." Just wanted to share because I know you guys are probably gonna watch it. We're like, "Okay." And watching it, you already get like this weird, creepy vibe, like with the film. Netflix so far has been doing a pretty good job with their horror stuff. So like, you know what? Why not? Let's give it a shot. So Ju-on Origins supposedly is based on the original house that Ju-on is based on. Does that make sense? Okay. So Ju-on is based on a house. Ju-on is a story based on a house in Japan, but then Ju-on Origins talks about the original house, that what actually happened. Sounds even more confusing, but basically what they're trying to say is the Ju-on film is based on this house, but then this is what actually happened. That's what they're trying to say. That's how they're advertising it.
Yeah.
And it definitely shares a lot of common themes with
The franchise.
yeah, with the franchise, definitely. Like loosely connected characters and their arcs. But in this particular series, though, miniseries, I guess you could say, there's like two main characters. Technically three if you want to count the mother. the high school mom. Technically, if you want to count her as well, 3. Yeah, I think I would count her. So
Yeah.
3.
She does kind of disappear for a little bit.
Yeah, but I'd say she's a pretty significant character because she does reappear like near the end too. So yeah, I'd say it follows like 3 characters and their experiences trying to find this house because basically their close members or their close people are kind of affected by this house, and so they feel kind of drawn to it, trying to figure out like why they're gone, what's going on, and just trying to get down to this mystery. And they do a pretty good job. This series is pretty dark and pretty gritty. Like, it doesn't hold back when it depicts any scenes that will make viewers uncomfortable. Like, if you don't think they'll go there, they're actually gonna go there. They'll show you like how it happens or what happens, and it's very brutal, very gruesome. Very tragic too. Most at the heart of most horror films is like tragedy. So, well, at least most Asian horror films, it's at the heart of it is pretty much tragedy. This series is pretty good with that. So
yeah, the very first episode is me and Larry were watching. We were just like, oh my gosh, they went there. You know?
Oh yeah.
And and then like even like midway through, I'm thinking of like the couple. You know?
The couple with the murders and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
like
yeah.
That was
they'll
very
go there.
and,
they will go there. Yeah.
It was crazy, crazy. Overall, I think very, very well done. Japanese, like, it felt very Japanese to me.
Yes.
You know, and by that I mean like very much like slice of life. You know, like kind of taking things day by day, and you kind of get that feeling of like, you know, you're a part of these people's lives and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, very, very well done, in my opinion.
Yeah. Definitely check it out whenever you get a chance, because this series actually surprised me, because Jonathan and I, we saw Haunting Hill House, and we kind of proclaimed that, you know, this series has evolved the horror genre. Like, this film evolves the Japanese horror genre as well. And we think it did a really great job, you know, because like, I guess one of the big tropes is that usually when you watch horror films, when there's like a horror scene or a jump scare scene occurring, like it only involves one character and like the entity that's involved with it, right? But in this series, there's like 2 or more characters in that same room, and they're both experiencing the same thing. You know what I mean? So you know, like you don't want to mess with this. You know, this is scary as hell.
Yeah, the first time that happens, it's about this actress, I think, who is like hearing footsteps in her room, and she doesn't know like why. And so she comes home, and her boyfriend or like husband or boyfriend is like sleeping outside on the couch, and she's like, oh, like, why are you sleeping outside on the couch? Like, why are you napping here? And he like tries to like brush it off, like, oh yeah, I just fell asleep on accident, but you know, he can't sleep in the bedroom because, you know, there's footsteps in there. And then like they both hear footsteps, and they both look at the bedroom, and she's like, did you hear that? He's like, yeah, I heard that. So yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So the final film for today is The Wailing, Korean film that came out in 2016. This film is about a police officer who lives in this small town in Korea, and he kind of experiencing like a bunch of different murders in the in the village that he lives in. And as he's kind of experiencing it and investigating it, his own daughter becomes involved in the story. And what happens eventually is that he learns that there is a spirit that is possessing people to kind of kill others, and it normally possesses people to kill like their own family and stuff like that. And so it's a very slow film, but I think if you like horror and you enjoy it, I think it's worth it. I think what did you think of, Larry?
Oh, I had no idea what I was getting myself into when I first watched this film. Like, I just turned it on because I was like, okay, I need to watch this film for this. I elected it only because I just heard really, really good things about it. And wow, like, I was blown away by this film completely.
Did you? We could talk spoilers about this. Did you?
Sure.
Did you guess? I guess, like, did you figure out who the real culprit was in the film?
I actually wasn't. Usually, I don't like doing that. I just kind of like sitting through it and just kind of experiencing. Oh my god! Even if it's a plot twist that's coming like a mile away, like, I'll totally like be suckered into it because I'm so like into like the present moment of like what's kind of going on. And so like, it's even if I tried to like predict what was going on, what was happening, like the film would just twist you on its head and like, no, this is what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And so yeah, this film, wow, like it's
Yeah, it's the story is so well written. The dialogue is also really, really good. The final dialogue at the very end between the kind of like the nephew priest and the Akuma is like
the
very,
foreigner.
very,
Yeah.
yeah, very, very, very well done.
Yeah. But overall, like what this film does, it does a very good job combining Eastern and Western tropes in horror. Like that was the big thing that came to mind. Because it talks about like demons, spirits, possessions, and different ways to approach it. Like what happens is the daughter ends up kind of getting possessed by the spirit, and so they try to appease it by traditionally using Korean shamanism rituals.
Or they try to kill it, rather.
Yeah, they try to kill it.
Deliver it.
They try to kill it. Yeah, using some kind of hex, they try to kill it, but that didn't work out too well. And then then the father goes to the priest and says, "Can you do something about it?" And he's like, "No, like at this point, it's a way too far into it." And then later on, as they kind of like break down the investigation and break down like what's kind of going on, yeah, it just combines so many different things that kind of like shows that like the way Eastern horror is seen and between Western horror is seen, it's the exact same thing, but then it's told in different perspectives, and that's what this film does. So like for example, like you have the mysterious foreigner. The foreigner is what everyone is thinking is like the reason why the village is cursed. And then the second one is you have the Korean shaman who is like an expert and renowned in his field. And the third one is you have this lady in white who just appears randomly and like gives hints to like the father on like what to do. And so these three entities that are in play gets you really thinking about like what's going on. It tries to get you thinking about what's kind of going on and such. And so what made me realize, what made me like, I guess how I interpreted it was so the foreigner is the demon, right? But then usually ladies in white in Asian horror stories are no you know, ladies in white, okay? Never ever trust a lady in white in Asian horror films. But in Western horror films, that's like it could like represent like an angel, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So maybe
or like Lady Galadriel from Lord of the Rings.
or maybe she's trying to help. And so and then in the film, that's where the main character gets really confused because you know you're not supposed to trust a lady in white. You never ever trust a lady in white. But then he knows there's some sort of involvement of like some kind of Western thing here too that's going on. So he's not too sure who to trust, what to trust, and it kind of plays on that very, very well. And I really, really enjoyed that part. So that's what really got me thinking. I was like, wow, that's crazy how they managed to combine all those things too. So
yeah. Yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of the main character. I don't know if they probably did it on purpose, but for me, like, I don't know, I just didn't like it. Like he made the whole film like so hard for me to watch.
Oh, really?
Because yeah, like he was just, I just didn't like him at all. Like,
oh wow, okay.
He was very lazy. He didn't take his work very seriously. Like
yeah, he's not your traditional main character, I guess you could say.
Yeah, he's not like by far. And the only thing that I appreciate about him is that he would do anything for his daughter.
Yeah,
like, that is the one character trait that I was like, yeah, like this guy is cool. But everything else, oh my god,
yeah,
like he's so terrible.
Yeah,
like, so terrible.
But that's for me. That's what makes it really funny. Like I love the main character, which is
I freaking hate the main
because okay,
character.
what really made it for me was when in the very beginning was when he was in the police station with his partner, right? It was like late at night. It was late at night, and they were like filing cases and reports on like the earlier murder that just happened. Yeah. And then all of a sudden
there's a blackout.
Yeah, there's a blackout, and he starts freaking out. He's like, "Oh my god, do you see that? Do you see that?" And I was like, bro, that's hella funny because that's like in reality, that's how anyone react. Anyone would react in that situation. And so it was so freaking hilarious, and it was like the first jump scare, I guess you could say, right, of the film. It was super hilarious.
Yeah. Definitely. I would also say like this film is kind of comical. Like when they when the shaman ritual fails, the main character like rounds up his buddies to go beat up the foreigner.
Yeah.
And when they get there, like he's not there, but they find this zombie instead. And like the whole scene where they're fighting the zombie is just so freaking hilarious. And yeah, they like knock it in the head with the rake, and like it's still alive. It's really funny.
Yeah, and that just goes to show you, like, it just depends on how you approach zombies. But yeah, the way this film made zombies is like, well, zombies are scary. You do not want to mess with them because you cannot do anything to them at all.
I guess another funny thing too is like he accidentally kills the foreigner, like because he's on his phone.
Oh yeah,
he's on his phone and he's driving. The first thought I had when he was driving and he was on his phone I was like, dude, why are you on your freaking phone and you're driving? And then he like almost crashes head on to this car coming, and then he loses control of his truck, and then he hits the foreigner and the foreigner's like in the middle of the road, and he hits the foreigner and kills him. And then they think that the curse is lifted or whatever, so they go and he goes back to his daughter, and his daughter is seemingly okay, but it's a horror movie, y'all. She ain't okay. Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, I actually do like the main character because he's very realistic, because he is lazy, he is all this and that. He's not your traditional main character, but he's very, I personally would say, very real in terms of like how he would react if we were in that situation. you know? So yeah, I really like that.
I think for me a little bit more character development, like by the end he's
Oh yeah.
And then I guess one question that I had is, who do you think the lady in white is?
I want to. There's actually a deleted scene in the film. I didn't see it, but there's actually a deleted scene. Have you seen it, or have you read about it?
No, I haven't heard of this.
In the deleted scene, so spoilers, y'all. We already kind of spoiled a little bit, but more spoilers. In this deleted scene, what happens is you see a kid who's sitting on a bench, and you see the foreigner trying to talk to the kid, but the kid walks away. And then you see the accomplice, like the shaman, the accomplice, with him as well. And in the distance, you see a lady in white. Kind of watching over them too. So that's pretty much it. That's the deleted scene. That's how it's supposed to end, I guess you could say.
Okay.
But I think the lady in white, I wasn't sure at first. I thought she was a third accomplice as well, to assist with the curse in the village. But I want to say she's probably supposed to represent like an angel, someone who's trying to like help, but like doesn't know quite well to explain it. But the big thing that does make her suspicious is that she did wear things that all the victims had. So it's sort of like, that's hella suspicious, y'all, So I'm not too sure about that, but so that kind of goes against the angel theory, but that's what I think. I think she's supposed to be like, in Western terms, an angel that's supposed to kind of help appease, or that helps prevent the curse. So
right. And then you did get this, we did get the scene where she casts a spell on the shaman accomplice.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and so that's a little confusing. You're just like, wait a second, hold on.
Yeah, I thought you were with them, but this is totally against them. But then they've already shown that they're willing to like hurt each other to like to just even get like to even like succeed in their rituals. Like they're willing to do that.
Right.
So I don't know. It's very like open ended. That's what I think. What do you think?
I also don't know like. I at one time I thought that the lady ghost was actually his daughter.
Oh,
that his daughter had died already, and the lady in white was actually his daughter.
Oh, okay, that's an interesting way. Okay, I never looked at it that way.
Yeah, because they showed that pin that that his daughter had, and then at the very end she dropped it on the floor, and so I thought, oh, maybe it is his daughter trying to save him, because she's already dead, and the demon's already killed like his wife and mother, and so like I thought maybe that was his daughter trying to save him.
Yeah.
It also has a lot of allusions to like Christianity. Like there's the Bible verse at the very beginning, and also the Bible verse that is recited again by Satan at the end. And then there's also the rooster crowing, which is a kind of like a nod to Peter and Peter's denial of Christ in the before sunrise or whatever. And so like I haven't had that much time to think about like what that might mean for it, but I think it's trying to say something there too.
Yeah.
And then I was also very confused. I guess my final thought on this is I wasn't sure where the priest had finally put two and two together and found out that like the Japanese guy was the demon, like was Satan incarnate. You know, like I don't know how he figured that out. It just didn't make sense.
I don't know either, but I think maybe it was like bugging him for a very long time. I guess like with it, like maybe because he's a deacon, he's studying to become a priest, and so I guess he feels like the only one that would be able to communicate with him because he knows Japanese, and the foreigner's Japanese, and so maybe he felt compelled to do so. I don't know. There's no real reason why he went to do it, especially because he got hurt by that zombie. It was pretty bad injury.
Yeah, and he knew like where to find him and everything too. You know? It's as if he had already known all these things. So
and at the same time, like, I just totally had like like an epiphany. Okay, so okay. Usually when it comes to foreigners, right? A lot of people. What's the proper term for people who are national citizens, like people in their country?
Nationals.
Yeah. So the thing about Korean nationals is they had such a really bad rep or really bad history with Japanese foreigners, or with the Japanese, which is why there's so much animosity towards it. But with him, usually Christianity, because a lot of them, way back when, because being like a missionary, you kind of had to be a lot more open. So you're willing to openly communicate with foreigners because that's so normal for you. So it could, so that's what it could be. That's what it could mean too. It could kind of like show that, when it comes to like religion, you're willing to like openly communicate and try to figure out what's going on, what's wrong. Because in this film, no one wanted to communicate with the foreigner. Everyone wanted to blame everything on him. But the only one that wanted to talk to him was the deacon himself. And the deacon was like, you know what, I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to kind of hear you out. And I just want to talk it out, But no one wanted to. Everyone wanted to blame him. So that's what it could like kind of represent to or be an allusion to. So
yeah, interesting. Yeah. Well, this episode went on for a long time. So
yes,
why don't we wrap it up?
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are the 3 films that we have for today. I hope you guys enjoyed sitting and talking with us about these. Definitely give these a try, except for the Grudge 2020. Don't watch that one. Ju-on Origins 2020, give it a try, and The Wailing 2016. Definitely give that one a try too. Although that one's really slow. Just a fair warning. Yeah, and so this concludes episode 1 of the Halloween special. We'll be releasing episodes every week instead of every day. And so look forward to our next episode. What's episode 2 about, Larry?
Episode 2 is about the haunting of Bly Manor. But we'll be watching a few other Mike Flanagan films as well. We didn't quite finish the list last year, so we're finishing it up this year. So I believe we'll be talking about Haunting of Bly Manor, Doctor Sleep, Oculus, and Gerald's Game. Correct?
Yep.
Those are the 4? Okay.
Yep.
We'll be talking about that, so get prepped and ready when those come out for next episode so you can hear our thoughts on it.
All right. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you all next time. Bye.